Hello and welcome, I'm Ruby Barlow and you are watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some headlines of this hour. Iran says it has launched a massive wave of drone strikes targeting Israel and US military bases in the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. Iranian state media says that attacks targeted facilities including Al Minhad Air Base in the UAE and a strategic site in Israel as the war enters its second week. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it is watching for any US Navy move to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz as the regional war disrupts shipping. The warning comes after Washington said it may protect commercial vessels in the strategic waterway, which carries a large share of the world's oil trade. President Donald Trump calls for Iran's unconditional surrender in a major escalation 1 week after the United States and Israel began military operations. The statement comes as diplomatic mediation is discussed even while new missile and air attacks continue across the region. Israel launches heavy air raids on Hezbollah-controlled southern districts of Beirut in a campaign that has killed more than 200 people and displaced hundreds of thousands. The military issued evacuation warnings before targeting areas it describes as key Hezbollah strongholds in the Lebanese capital. Burning aircraft and thick smoke are seen at Tehran's Mehrabad airport after reported bombardment at Iran's main domestic aviation hub. The incident follows announcement of a wider offensive aimed at Iranian military and defense infrastructure. Russian President Vladimir Putin expresses support for an immediate ceasefire during a call with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The Kremlin says Moscow is urging a return to diplomatic talks as fighting continues between Iran, Israel and US forces. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says Washington is monitoring reports that Moscow may be sharing intelligence with Tehran. He says any developments are being factored into American military planning during the current regional conflict. Saudi Arabia says its defences intercepted 6 drones heading toward a major oil field and a ballistic missile targeting a military facility. Authorities say the projectiles were aimed at the Shaybar energy site and Prince Sultan Air Base, which has hosted US Air Force operations. And now to our top story. According to Lebanon's health ministry, Israeli strikes on eastern Lebanon during a commando operation have resulted in at least 41 deaths. The operation was aimed at locating the remains of Israeli airman Ron Arad, who has been missing since 1986. The Lebanese military has confirmed that 3 of its soldiers were killed due to brutal shelling by Israeli forces, and that several civilians also lost their lives in the violence that followed. The Lebanese military has further reported an exchange of fire between Israeli forces and locals in the area of Nabi Sheet. Meanwhile, Israel's army later stated that no findings related to Arad were discovered during the operation. Moreover, Israel's military has also issued a forced displacement order for some residents of Tyre, a coastal city in southern Lebanon. The warning includes plans to strike 6 buildings, which the Israeli army claims are linked to Hezbollah. In response, Hezbollah has called on residents of Kiryat Shimona, a northern Israeli city near the border with Lebanon, to evacuate immediately and head south, as tensions continue to rise along the border. Now, joining us live, we have 2 guests. We're joined by Alison Matla, who is a former AP Bureau Chief located in Romania, Bucharest. And also joining us, we have Nirmal Abraham, who is a political analyst in Kochi, Kerala. Now, to you first, Alison, what do you make of this operation to recover this airman's remains? Has it been an opportunity that the Israeli army has taken meanwhile they fight Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon?
It does sound rather strange. I understand why Israeli are attacking Hezbollah positions within Lebanon, but that's a long-held issue for them. But recovering the remains of Ron Arad's body, who died so many years ago, unless they have very good intelligence and they had a plan to go in and retrieve it, it does sound, on the face of it at least, it doesn't sit very easily with striking Hezbollah targets within Lebanon. So that's what they're saying, but unless they have intelligence, which they're not releasing, which is possible, I don't see how, on the one hand, they are striking Hezbollah targets, on the other hand, they're looking for this body. I mean, does it exist anymore? Do the remains exist? Do they know where it is? Is it held in a safe place? It does seem rather odd that in the middle of this wider Middle East war, we have the Israelis trying to retrieve the body of one of their pilots who died decades ago.
Mm-hmm. And now to you, Nirmal. In your view, how does the killing of these Lebanese soldiers during the Israeli commando operation affect the already fragile relationship between Lebanon and Israel?
Well, I think it's a matter of getting caught in the crossfire, as we've seen before in wars between Israel as well as Hezbollah. I think Hezbollah plays a big part in this. And although the Lebanese government and military have tried to disarm Hezbollah, they have never been successful. And that's one of the reasons why this keeps happening. Not to say that Israel, has no role in it. Of course, they have a role in it. And but I think it's largely because of the fact that Jordan is geographically located between these two countries, and the fact that Lebanon. The fact that Hezbollah is involved politically and militarily in Lebanon is one of the reasons why the people get caught in the crossfire. So I would say that the blame should not completely go to Israel. It has to be 50% on Israel and 50% on Hezbollah, and a small portion of that should go to the government and the military of Lebanon, because they've been asked even by the United Nations in the early 2000s to disarm Hezbollah, which they haven't been able to do. In 2004, there was a resolution. In 2006, there was another resolution. In 2024, they tried. They're even attempting right now. But judging from the reports that I read and listen to, I think the United States and Israel are actually helping Lebanon militarily as well as strategically to completely disarm Hezbollah, which will be an uphill task because Hezbollah at the moment is more powerful than the Lebanese military. So it's not going to be easy for them.
Mm-hmm. Alison and Nirmal, please both stay with us as we move to our next story. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz emphasized that Israel holds no territorial claims against Lebanon, but will take action against any threats originating from the country. Katz issued a stern warning to the Lebanese government, urging them to disarm Hezbollah. He further stated that if Hezbollah remains armed, Lebanon will face severe consequences, highlighting Israel's readiness to defend its security at any cost. Now to you first, Nirmal. So the civilians in this region of North Israel and South Lebanon are caught between three armed forces at the moment: the Israeli Defense Force, the Lebanese army, and of course Hezbollah as well. What type of impact does this have on the civilians in the region?
Oh, I think it's going to have a big impact, although not as big as the war that we saw last year. And I think it will result in a lot of displacement that we are already seeing. There is displacement within Lebanon, where they're moving to safer havens in Lebanon, and some people are moving to Syria. So it is going to result in displacement. But fortunately for Lebanon, as we've seen in the past, in the past conflicts, countries will come up and obviously help Lebanon, because they've received aid from France, from the European Union, and under Joe Biden, they did receive aid from the United States as well. So I hope that some of these nations, including the US and the European Union, will come up and possibly provide them aid once the disturbance in the area is over. At the moment, I think it will result in a few deaths, unfortunately, if the conflict continues, and a lot of people being displaced internally and as well as outside of the country.
Mm-hmm. And now to you, Alison. Israel Katz has emphasized that Israel holds no territorial claims against Lebanon. Now, of course, some far-right ministers in the Netanyahu government have been proponents of the idea of Greater Israel, and Israel has occupied Lebanese territory before. they're currently also occupying the Golan Heights. Could we see an occupation by the Israeli army in southern Lebanon?
It's possible. I mean, Israel is using this war as an opportunity to strike Hezbollah and put pressure on Lebanon over Hezbollah. I mean, there have been talks in recent months between, I think, Israeli and Lebanese civilian forces about Hezbollah. But it's possible because they're using this window of opportunity where there is a war going on, so that force is expected, and it's not just located in Lebanon, it's in Iran, it's in other places, it's in the Emirates, etc., etc., it's in Jordan. It really is a wide war that Israel will use this opportunity to press on with its aims. And in their aims of destroying Hezbollah, they may very well may occupy areas of northern of Lebanon, saying that they want to root out Hezbollah, but in a perhaps an overreactive way. But they could do that as part of their aims to root out Hezbollah, which is a mortal enemy. It's an arm of Iran, and its aim is to destroy the state of Israel. So we are talking about a state of war, and Israel is at war with Hezbollah, as well as involved in the war in Iran.
Mm-hmm. Please both stay with us as we move to our next update. US President Donald Trump's decision to strike Iran has triggered significant backlash from key MAGA voices, including Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly. Many of these supporters, who were pivotal in his 2024 campaign, are now questioning the operation's justifications and its potential to drag on. White House correspondent Natalie Winters noted that Trump has a maximum of a month before the situation could be viewed as just another prolonged war. Trump had initially stated the operation would last around 4 weeks, but officials are now suggesting it could stretch to 8 weeks or more. Now joining us, we have our guests. Alison, just to you, what type of reaction has the Trump base had to the start of this war?
Well, in a way, it's to be expected. One of the reasons that Donald Trump was elected, he was a president of peace. He was no longer going to get United States involved in these forever wars. We have the memories of Vietnam, I suppose, a long time ago. More recently, Afghanistan, Iraq, and they all ended pretty disastrously, particularly Afghanistan and Iraq. So I think that was one of the reasons he was elected. So it's to be expected that his base, or key people who helped to get him elected, will be critical of him. They're giving him a window, saying you have 4 weeks. I think obviously if it does go on for 8 weeks, I don't think it will necessarily become a huge fracture within his base, but it will be a black mark against it. But again, this does show what politicians campaign on, and then what they do once in office are very often two different things. And Trump is not the only politician. Many politicians are like this. So he probably does have a few weeks, if you like, to play with. But, if it goes on much longer than that, it will seriously test his popularity. And don't forget, he has midterms coming up in the autumn, and he'll want to do well in those.
Mm-hmm. Alison, just on that note, what type of impact could we see on the midterms if this conflict does extend on? What do you think we could see?
Well, it could hurt him. They could lose the majority in Congress, the Republicans, and that's what he's worried about. And it's not just the war, which obviously is not as far as I understand from opinion polls, it's not popular in the United States. He is selling it, Donald Trump, as this is a show of American might, this is a show of American power, we've beheaded an evil regime, etc., etc. But, as somebody once said, wars are very easy to get into and hard to get out of. So if the longer it goes on, and particularly the more American lives that are lost, that will cost him, and it will cost him in the elections. And he needs to have control of the Congress for his remaining years in office.
Mm-hmm. Alison, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's always a pleasure. Now, according to Jordanian military officials, Amman has accused Iran of targeting key sites in the kingdom, including American and allied military facilities, as part of escalating regional conflicts. Jordan's armed forces say they have intercepted multiple ballistic missiles and drones and have summoned the Iranian ambassador to lodge a strong protest over what they call violations of the kingdom's sovereignty and security. This comes amid broader retaliatory strikes by Iran following US and Israeli military actions against Iranian targets. Jordanian leaders have warned that they will take all necessary measures to safeguard their territory and citizens as tensions continue to rise across the region. Now joining us again, we have Nirmal Abraham in Kochi, Kerala. Now, Nirmal, how has this conflict affected Jordan? Of course, it's right in the middle there, right next to the border of Israel. It has a significant population of ethnic Palestinians. How were their relations with Iran before this war, and how might this play out for the Kingdom of Jordan?
I think Jordan, if you've noticed of late, has moved slightly closer to Israel as well as the United States. So I don't think it's a matter of concern for them whether Iran would consider them an enemy. At the moment, the reason why they're considered an enemy is because they're hosting US military capabilities and intercepting some of the missiles that were meant to go to Israel. So in a way, it gives the impression to Iran that they're getting involved in the war, they're defending Israel. So that isn't a good sign. But I think Jordan has no choice, as you rightly mentioned. When you sit in the middle of Iran and Israel, there is absolutely no choice than to get caught in the crossfire, just like Lebanon because of Hezbollah. So I think that's the reason, largely because of the military bases and the defense that they do on behalf of Israel is something that Iran may not like. And they will continue to strike because if you notice the Iranian president's comments today, he mentioned that he may not be attacking the other Gulf states. He will only be attacking states that will defend or either attack from military bases. And Jordan is one of them. So, they're bound to get into more of a conflict if it continues.
Mm-hmm. And how has this affected the Jordanian people? How are we seeing a mixed reaction to the war? Is there outrage against the monarchy for aligning themselves with the United States and bringing this conflict closer to home, so to say?
I would say it's a mixed reaction, largely because because any conflict the conflicts in this area, if you notice, for the past few years or so, all of these conflicts, the conflicts have happened largely because of Iran or their proxies. I mean, one of the reasons why the US or Israel is going into this war is to make sure that Iran never supports Hezbollah, Houthis, or Hamas, all of whom belong to this territory. And that, as a consequence, all the collateral damage is absorbed by countries like Lebanon and Jordan. So they want it gone forever. I mean, if they continue supporting Iran, let's say, the issue is that, every now and again, every 2 years or so, which, as it has happened since the 21st century, they would have continued conflicts. They would have a refugee crisis. They would have an economic crisis, and people might lose their lives. So once and for all, some people in Jordan think that it's good that if the US or Israel is able to take out the threat, that also means that they will be able to take out the disturbance that they've been facing on a regular basis for the past few years. So it's a mixed reaction, although certain people do not, and most people don't like war, but they see it as a solution, a permanent solution to the consistent problems that they have been facing for the past 3 or 4 decades.
Mm-hmm. Nirmal Abraham, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Now to our next story. The United Arab Emirates intercepted 15 ballistic missiles and 119 drones as part of ongoing attacks from Iran. The UAE Ministry of Defence reported that its air defence systems successfully detected and destroyed 15 out of 16 ballistic missiles, with 1 missile falling into the sea. Additionally, 119 out of 121 unmanned aerial vehicles were intercepted, while 2 drones fell within UAE territory. In a controversial statement that has sparked outrage, Matt Schlapp, head of the American Conservative Union, has recently justified the killing of over 100 young schoolgirls in southern Iran. During a panel discussion on a UK-based talk show called Piers Morgan Uncensored, Schlapp has argued that these girls were, quote, saved from religious extremism. Schlepp has further claimed that these girls, had they survived, would have lived under oppressive conditions and would have been unable to make career choices. His comments were immediately challenged by US journalist Peter Beinart, who pointed out that the deaths of these children could have been prevented if the US and Israel had not engaged in military action against Iran. Schlepp's statement has drawn widespread condemnation, especially for its dismissal of the value of human life in Iran. My colleague and senior editor Uday Pratap Singh has spoken to Professor Neven Winchester from Auckland University of Technology, New Zealand. They discuss India-New Zealand ties, the implications of the free trade agreement, India's efforts to fight climate change, and the economic costs of the Middle East conflict. All this and more at the Raisina Dialogue being held in India's capital, New Delhi. Take a look.
Now, NewsX is Professor Neven Winchester. He is a professor of economics at the Auckland University of Technology in New Zealand. Thank you very much for being with us and welcome to India.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here at the Raisina, really enjoying the diversification of lots of different disciplines, from academia like myself through to the policymakers and people from industry from many different countries around the world.
Let me begin by asking you firstly about India-New Zealand ties. We saw last year itself at Raisina 2025, the Prime Minister of New Zealand was the chief guest, in fact. We did see a very positive meeting of his as well, a bilateral with Prime Minister Modi. Where do you see India-New Zealand ties headed? The way forward for them?
I think it's very positive. New Zealand and India have recently finished negotiating outcomes for a free trade agreement. It hasn't been signed yet, but there's just the formalities to go through, from my understanding. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of great opportunities going forward for our two nations. And of course, I would have to mention the cricket final tomorrow as well. So best of luck to India and New Zealand for that.
Absolutely. We're hoping for India to win. I'm sure you're hoping for the Kiwis to win. But are you a fan of cricket?
Of course, yes. And but let's hope for a good game and we can cheer for our respective teams. Absolutely. And we'll be friends at the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me just ask you then about trade, since that's a subject you talk about a lot. We've seen, of course, the threat of tariffs from the United States of America unite a lot of countries in forging free trade agreements and looking at alternative markets. How do you really see this realignment that we're seeing in trade post the tariff war that the US has imposed?
So I think it's natural for countries like New Zealand to look towards where all the growth is going. Most of the growth is going to be in the future. So the trade agreement that New Zealand has signed, if we look at the bilateral relationship now, India is New Zealand's fifth largest trading partner, but that's going to change dramatically due to the high growth in India. So the current situations with the US tariffs, I think that's forcing people to look away from the US and for other markets a little bit more than they otherwise would. But even without that, there's great incentives for New Zealand to look to where that growth is, and a lot of that's going to come from India in the future.
Yes. In terms of the other areas of convergence between New Zealand and India, what do you see other areas where we can work together?
Yeah, so I believe there is a function going on at the New Zealand High Commission about strengthening ties with sport between our two countries. Obviously, we share cricket, but I believe there is a lot going on in the background there with sharing knowledge and sporting activities between the two countries. There's some great, I think, synergies in trade, where New Zealand is an exporter of agricultural products. India is predominantly exporting manufactured goods to New Zealand, which we don't have the local market to take advantage of economies of scale. So there's win-win possibilities there.
Prime Minister Modi of India has been also very vocal in his, concern for environmental issues. As a leader of the global South, what kind of role can India play, in leading the conversation and dialogue on efforts to combat climate change?
Yeah, so I think India is doing fantastic stuff in rolling out solar energy and wind as well, but mainly solar. So that switch to renewables from very much a coal-dominated grid system to renewables is showing a pathway for the rest of the world, and also the size of the Indian market to have another large global producer of a lot of those renewable products, and rolling those out is great for the world and driving down those prices. Just think of the scale, and also providing that pathway for other countries to follow.
Finally, the Middle East conflict, of course, is on. We are seeing after the strikes in Iran, retaliation and a prolonged conflict is staring at us in the face. Is there a concern that if this does go on, there will be constraints on oil supply, on logistics, on energy security, and perhaps this will also have an economic cost?
Yes, so there's quite devastating costs for those countries directly involved at the moment, obviously, but for the broader community, at the moment, it's mainly uncertainty about what's going to happen next, and then we've seen that in the oil price, we've seen that in the financial markets. Going forward, just look at the logistical concerns of closing shipping routes. It's going to impact wider trade in India and New Zealand and the rest of the world. So that is a major concern. So hopefully we see some sort of resolution to those activities soon.
What position and stand has the New Zealand government taken on the conflict?
I don't have enough knowledge of that to comment, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective and view on a host of issues at Raisina.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
With journalist Dinesh Thakur, Uday Pratap Singh in Delhi, NewsX.
And that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.